Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? My name's Andrew Termini. With me, as always, is my brother and your host, Frank Termini. If you like what we're doing here, please go out there, like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And remember to turn on those notifications so you can be updated every time we upload some new content. We got a great show today, don't we, Frank?
Brother, I'm pulling up these questionnaires because there's a ton of detail. And we got a lot to get through in a short period of time. We got Jennifer Weaver.
Yes.
So Jennifer Weaver, you kind of started Relentless Pursuit.
Kind of.
And then we have Michelle Newton,
Yes.
who kind of runs the day-to-day. And I'm really excited to get into this, is a survivor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
amazing.
People are going to love hearing this story. Okay, so tell us what Relentless Pursuit is,
Okay.
and then how you tie
It's a
it.
crazy story. It's God all day.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So RPOR, Relentless Pursuit Outreach and Recovery, is an anti-human trafficking nonprofit based here in Kansas City, right? We got started as a 501c3 in 2019.
Oh gosh, it's really brand new then.
Right.
It's in the baby stage.
Let's back up a little bit though.
And one of the toughest times to get started.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's back up. So my day job, I work for an investment firm on the East Coast. I've been with my firm 24 years. I'm a mutual fund wholesaler, a national speaker for women in investing. So here I am just doing my thing, right? And all of a sudden, I feel like
You get the tone.
It was over the course of a few years. And the topic, so like the way God speaks to you a lot of times is just like a certain theme or topic just keeps coming up, and you might not really know what he's trying to tell you, but the theme of human trafficking kept coming up, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, what is this? What is going on? So it was probably 2016-ish.
Is when this starts to reveal itself.
Yeah. So I really felt like I needed to go to Jesus school, meaning seminary. Like that came out of nowhere.
You got a call to the seminary.
I'm working for an investment firm, like everything stock market, financial advisors, traveling all over the country. And I'm like, you know what? I need to do that and go to Jesus school. And so everybody's like, what? Like, what is that all about? You know? And so I had some mentors at the time that were running some international nonprofits and still do. And I took them my list of schools that I wanted to go to. And they were like, your schools are garbage. Like, they're like, no, that's not how you do this. They're like, if you want to do this, you need to go to an accredited seminary. You need to go to Harvard's Divinity School, Duke's Divinity School, Fuller Seminary. And I was like, first off, like, I have no business in any of those schools. Like, I'm like, I don't want to be a pastor. Like, I don't have any type of ministry background. And by the way, there's no way I'm going to get into any of those schools, right? And they're like, no, like, just apply. So long story short, I get into all of those schools.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do with that? But I ended up at Fuller Seminary in California because they let me put together my own program, and it was awesome. But while I was there, I ended up taking a class called the Mission of Children at Risk. Okay, easy enough. You get in there, your research paper, you had to pick a factor that affected kids and research it, write a paper on it. Okay, easy enough. I picked domestic minor sex trafficking here in Kansas City. And that set me on a path of following Russ Tuttle around for a few days, like going to all of his stuff with the kids and awareness and prevention. And I'm like,
just real quick, how you guys do what you do is beyond me.
I'm not going to lie, Frank. When we talked to Russ at the end of the episode, I was exhausted.
I went to sleep.
I was exhausted. I
literally went and took a nap. I was just, I don't know how, I really don't. I mean, clearly there's a ton of grace that has to be bestowed upon you to be able to do that job.
well, and when you, first off, you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in this whole discovery phase at that point where I'm like, okay, let me then see if this is true. Like,
Yeah,
is this
see,
really going on? Like, are kids being bought and sold in the city that I live in? Like, which would blow my mind if that's really true.
What about
And why
how the
don't I
demand?
hear about it?
What about how the demand looks?
Oh, I don't.
I mean,
yeah,
because for
like-
me, it's the exact opposite of what you would think. You know, you're like, I'm thinking of some scumbag looking, shady looking dude, and it's the middle class. Well, here, probably not even middle class. It's someone who has expendable income, and middle class people, they don't have expendable
Let me tell you,
income.
that's what blows me away about the caliber of the buyer. Like, and we'll get into the fast forward of like how we have a drop-in center on Independence Avenue. But when we started that drop-in center, I thought, I was like, okay, to your point, I was like, these buyers that we're going to end up seeing are going to be like old, grimy, whatever dudes in these beat up cars that are like buying ladies and no. We're talking 7 Series BMWs.
Yeah.
We're talking my clients. They look like my clients.
Yeah.
They're like 40-year-old white guys coming over there that have a ton of money, driving $150,000 pickup trucks. Like, I was blown away at the caliber of the buyer because he didn't look like what I thought he was going to look like.
Yeah.
And I was like,
So it's really not.
I could see you later in an office somewhere. And I was like, oh my goodness.
It's really an upper class white male.
A lot of the times that's what I see. I mean, it doesn't discriminate. The buyer doesn't discriminate, just like everything else. And we'll talk about that. But like, so I follow Russ Tuttle around. I go to some of his assemblies. I'm hearing kids talking about what's going on in schools and the sexting and everything. Because, I mean, you look at your phone, every one of us carry the biggest brothel in the world around with you 24/7. And every predator in the world has access to your kids and anybody through that brothel right there, right? And so following him around and learning about what's going on, I write this paper and it completely wrecks me. Like, I couldn't even believe, like, by the time I got done writing it, I was like, wow, okay. Like, I can't even believe this. And so.
And now you can't turn.
Well, and once you know, like, you have to do something about it, right? Like, and so, but to be completely honest, I had no intentions of doing anything. I just wanted to write the paper and I wanted to bring awareness to the issue, right? So that was my intention. And I go to my husband's friend's house. He was hosting a UFC fight. And I'm like, and he was a firefighter at one point, a police officer, special forces for the military. Like, and I'm like, do you know what is going on? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, read this paper. There are kids that are being bought and sold. I'm wrecked. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, so he reads the paper.
So this is a first responder who has no clue this is going on.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
So he reads this paper, calls me back like a week or two later. And he's like, this is really going on. He's like, I've done some recon and this is going on. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, I just researched this thing for months. I'm like, I know what's going on. And he's like, well, now that we know, we can't not do anything about it. He's like, we have to fight this. And I was like, no. Like, I have no intentions on. I was like, do you know how busy I am? I'm like, I travel every week. I'm on the board at the Mattie Road Center here. Like, I'm doing all the things. I do not have time to like fight trafficking. Like, let somebody else do that. And he's like, yeah, no. He's like, no, we're not doing that. And I was like, well, how would you like to do this? What are you wanting to do exactly? He's like, we're going to start a nonprofit. And I was like, well, have you ever started one of those before? He's like, nope. And I was like, anything I'm involved in has been around for at least 100 years. Literally, like Shelter KC, Mattie Rhodes. I'm like, every organization I'm involved with in the city has been around forever. I've never started anything from scratch. And he's like, well, we're about to find out. And
I have 2 501c3s. So one of them's been around since 2015 and one since 2021. And I just remember hiring an attorney to do it all.
we recruited an attorney to our board of directors.
Yeah.
So he was able to like do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pain. Then I have an attorney and an accountant, and they just kind of manage
you
everything.
establish that 501c3, then you have to do something with it. Like,
Right.
whatever you know. That's why I was like, I don't have time for that.
And the mission we're speaking to is large.
I'm like, I was like, I don't even know the first thing about how to combat this and all the things.
It's funny because you say everything else that you've been involved with has been around for a long time. So is trafficking. It's been around longer than me.
Here, and honestly, so this could be something that could have been going on for who knows how long, and we are just now hearing about it because it's not like the hearts of men have changed just in the last 4 years, and they all of a sudden decided they wanted to start liking,
absolutely not.
you know,
it's been going on
having a drive for young kids, right?
forever.
So, yeah, I mean,
and that's why the awareness piece and prevention piece, like the work that Russ Tuttle does, is so important to like stop it before it even
I think
starts.
maybe it's gotten worse because of this.
Oh, absolutely.
I think this has made it much easier.
Because you think about it, at the end of the day, human trafficking is the exploitation of a vulnerability. And that's what makes this so complex. Because you think about the gamut of vulnerabilities. That could be like...
He may have said exploitation of vulnerability 20 times in our podcast.
Because that's what it is.
Because now that she said that, I remember him saying that.
And because every individual has some vulnerability.
Something. Either you're lonely, you need food, like you have a drug addiction, like your gamut of vulnerabilities is...
And when you're looking at an adolescent or a teen, the vulnerability is just...
Yes.
It's body dysmorphia. It's, you know, they're looking at these models on their Facebook and then they look at themselves and they're like, well, number one, what you're looking at is not real.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so there's that. There's, you know, did they make the soccer team? Did they make the volleyball team? Did they make the dance team? And there, I mean, it's.
Do I have friends? Like, how many likes am I getting? All the things.
Yeah, the like button has been poison to our society.
Yeah.
It really has been. Unfortunately,
and it's poisoned. And I'm here. For me, I am, and you know this, I'm hyper confident. I am one person that just does not care. I just don't. I've been very fortunate. I just never have. And I wish there was a way that I could teach my kids that. Because, and one thing I always tell them is like, if you look at 1%ers, if you look at the most successful people in the world, whether it's successful at a sport, successful in business, and I'm not even talking about money, but they have one thing in common. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that,
they just don't.
And we spoke to this before. There's one thing to care about what others think, yet as long as it doesn't impact how you view yourself. And as an underdeveloped teen or adolescent, they don't even know who they are.
Right.
And they're still trying to define it. And as they continue to evolve and grow, they become a different person in every stage of growth.
Yeah.
And these guys just prey on
these phones.
They post everything under the sun on there, that they're lonely or whatever it is. And then here comes the predator.
Freak show.
Yeah.
Right.
Like looking for kids that are posting vulnerabilities, and they're going to DM them. They're going to start.
As parents, you're in a catch-22. So my kids, I have older ones and younger ones. The older ones are 26 and Nina would be 24. And then Gianna's 13 and the twins are 10. So my 13 and my 10-year-old twins do not have phones. But you get yourself in this catch-22 because once they're in high school, you want to give them the phone for you.
Right.
Because you want to track
their
them.
practice. I need to call you. Where are you? I need to pick you up.
Yes.
Like all the things.
Yes. You know, but I'm keeping the phone out of her hands until she gets in high school. I'm not letting her have it. I refuse. I refuse to do it. But anyway, this makes things so much more difficult for teenagers.
Absolutely.
So much more difficult.
And not just teenagers, anybody. I mean, that's the biggest brothel in the world.
Right. But when look at bullying. If you were bullied when you were at school, you went home and got away from it. And now you don't.
It escalates.
Now you don't. And
yeah.
You know, and I think that's why you see this big uptick in teen suicide. And kids going crazy, coming to school with AR-15s and freaking shooting everyone.
Yeah.
You know, because now there's so many school shootings that they got to make a series called Active Shooter. And there was like 10 episodes. I mean, so this is we have issues going on.
No doubt.
You know,
And we obviously all wish there's a better way to police that. And it's a catch-22 because people don't want to be censored, but yet they want to have oversight where in areas like this, which are difficult. And I want to please continue on and tell us more about.
I go down rabbit holes. You have to forget.
I do too all the time because I'll be like, oh yeah, and then but so started this 501c3 in 2019. Then COVID hits, and that was the biggest blessing to us because Lee and I travel for work all the time, and so we weren't traveling, and all of a sudden we had all this time to have meetings and get things set up, and so. Initially, we thought we were going to just help law enforcement with interdiction work. We thought we were going to help the FBI, Homeland Security with targeting packages to go after the traffickers.
Which Missouri, so here a little bit about me. My stepdaughter at 21 years old thought she was taking an oxycodone and it ended up being fentanyl. And clearly, she passed. And when they found that it was fentanyl in her system, the Department of Homeland Security took the case over. And because they said fentanyl is a Homeland Security issue. It's coming from China. It's a Homeland Security issue. And they sat in our living room and said, Missouri is the biggest spot for drug and sex interdiction in this country. It comes from the southern border to Missouri and then goes throughout the whole entire country. Yeah. And so I could see where you guys are dealing with that interdiction piece.
So we were working from that angle. And once we were doing that, we were working with some local FBI agents. One in particular, his name is Mike Daniels. He was working violent crimes against kids for over 20 years. And he was like, hey, this is great that you guys are helping us do this. But do you realize once you help with some targeting packages and whatnot, then you also get victims. Like when you go after traffickers and we're able to find them, then we also have victims. And guess what? We have nowhere to take them. He was like, you need to build us a crisis shelter. And I was like, oh, come on. I was like, we're not in the crisis shelter business. I'm like, I didn't even want to get into this to begin with. Now you're telling me we need to build a shelter. And so then one of our board members, Christine McDonald, she had also been trafficked on Independence Avenue in Kansas City. So
say it again.
She was one of our board members.
Okay, got it.
And so she was instrumental in us finding this block of property on Independence Avenue because
where are you at on Independence Avenue?
5100. We own that whole block across the street from Little Caesars. Next to.
Are you east of Van Brunt? Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm not.
Yes. You know what the Northeast Middle School?
Yes.
You got the Steam Bowl.
Okay.
And you had Little Caesars. We're across the street from Steam Bowl, Little Caesars.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right next to Northeast Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I'm not an east to west kind of girl.
Okay.
I'm from Pittsburgh on the East Coast. We don't do things by east and west. And so Christine, she was out there for a lot of years and she kept telling us, she's like, when I was out there, I really wished that there was some kind of drop-in center where I could have went to take a nap, get a shower, get resources, get a meal. And so we were like,
so okay. These women that come in may just be taking a break from the life and have every intention of going back after going back.
9 times out of 10.
She'll speak
Say that again.
9 times out of 10.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll catch you up to how we open the doors and then we'll turn it over to Michelle because she's in there doing the day in, day out, working with the ladies. And so when Christine said we need to find a place where we can have a drop-in center, we were like, okay. And, then we have Mike Daniels telling us we need to build this crisis shelter. So we ended up buying that 5100 block. And once again, it was a God thing. Like
how many square feet you got? I don't mean to keep interrupting.
Well, it's to give you an idea, it's 50. We have 5100, 50 through 5110.
Okay.
So there's four 5 separate entrances on that.
Oh, you got a big facility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we own the
It's
block next to
if you
the
can, I don't know if you're familiar with Independence Avenue.
Oh, yeah,
Used to
very
be a
much. My
barber-
whole family
used to
lived
be a
down
barber shop years ago. Joe,
Vento.
they still come asking him to cut his hair. Yeah, that whole little building.
And so Joe Vento, he was in his 80s during COVID. He owned that block, and it wasn't for sale at the time. But we had gone to him and asked him if he would end up taking payments. Like, we wanted to buy it from him to turn it into this drop-in center and a crisis shelter. And there were some firemen that we didn't know at the time. Like, we know them, but we didn't know at the time they were trying to buy the building as well from him, to turn it into office space. And that didn't work out. We went to him with no money and said, can we make payments of like $1,850 a month and pay this building off in X amount of time and do what we're going to do with all the anti-human trafficking work? And he said yes. And so we come across these firemen that we know, and they were like, how in the world did you get that building? Like, what bank funded that? I was like, we have no money. Like, what do you, like, we have nothing. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like,
that is a God thing.
I was like,
He's the financier.
yeah, I was like, and he was like, what do you mean? He's like, that building's a mess. No bank is going to give you a loan. I said, they didn't. I said, we went right.
But then
to
you
Joe
still had
Vento.
to, I'm sure, pay for the tenant improvements.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how much did you have to put into that?
Well, that's in the works.
You need to see us.
Yeah,
we need to come do a tour.
All right.
And so he was like, how did you do that? I said, we just went and asked him. We said, Joe, will you take payments? He was like, are you kidding me? He's like, who does that? I was like, we did. And he said, yes. I was like, you didn't ask him? I was like, that's your barber. That's been his barber since he was a little kid. And he didn't ask him. I was like, you should have just asked him. He probably would have said yes. Like, he's like, nobody does that. Nobody just asks the owner, can I make you payments to you, whatever. And so that's what
he has a soft spot in his heart, clearly.
He did. And we ended up paying the building off. And so we bought the building October 16th of 2020. The Rock of KC.
Yeah.
They were our very first visitors that morning to do a prayer walk before we even closed. We hadn't even closed on the building yet. And Pastor Philip and Pastor Susan and their whole crew came down and did a prayer walk and looked over everything. And then we went and closed on that building. And we opened up the drop-in center December 18th of 2020. So,
And so you mentioned in the questionnaire 90-day drop-in center to open.
the crisis shelter.
90-day crisis shelter.
So that's what we're working on now. The drop-in center is open, and that's what Michelle has been running.
So this is a totally separate facility. It's
Right.
It's not going to be under the same roof.
So
It's the same building.
same building,
is gonna
but
be
upstairs.
Upstairs.
Okay, so this is maybe an addict, hypothetically speaking, that needs rehab, and they get
It's a ton of work.
90 days at your facility.
Right. So think about it this way. And this goes back to Mike Daniels, that was the FBI agent. He ended up passing away. So we're going to name that after him.
Because this is amazing that you guys are doing this, because if you were to go to a regular rehab facility, you may get 3 weeks that the insurance will pay, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
And then there is, because so here with one of the 501c3s, Nina's Wings. Nina's Wings is after Nina that passed away. And what our goal, and we probably should talk about this, maybe not here, but our goal was me and my wife were like, 3 weeks is not long enough. Nina got out of rehab. She was home how long? Maybe 10 days?
Yeah.
Before she relapsed and passed away. So Michelle's like, we have to bridge this gap between getting out of rehab and going back into society. Because number one, 3 weeks isn't long enough, but even if you had 90 days, there still needs to be a way to bridge the gap to where these people can become functional members of society.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
And even at 90 days, then it becomes a conversation of, do you need a longer program?
You 100% need something.
And that's where they would go to one of our partners, like Rehope, that's in Harrisonville, where they're a long-term program, like a year to 3 years for.
And so you guys are just simply
We're bridging that gap, because here's the thing. When law enforcement picks up a victim at 2:00 in the morning right now, There is nowhere to take her in the state of Missouri
So,
at 2 a.m.
so if she says that she's been being sex trafficked,
Right.
But she's not had physical harm, there's no place.
No, where are you going to take her?
I mean,
Well, where do you take
I
if
don't-
they have physical harm? I mean, other than the hospital, maybe.
Well, and a lot of times she'll end up at St. Luke's or Truman or whatever, and she's back out in an hour and
Yeah.
she's back on the street because there is no facility that's open 24 hours, a 24-hour crisis shelter to do some triage, get her detoxed, everything, and then decide, like, does she need to go to rehope or
Well, in
wherever.
24 hours, depending on the drug of choice, I mean, that she's just
not
going to
even-
start getting bad.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
just going to start. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
when we say rehab, are we speaking to only women who have been sex trafficked, or are we talking about addiction in general?
Only ladies that have been sex trafficked.
Okay.
And they
Okay.
go hand in hand.
And they do. Like,
Yeah.
we
So,
Yeah.
we fight.
right. But
That's
someone who's just an addict is not going to go
Right,
to your
yeah.
facility.
No.
Okay.
So, because there are lots of detox facilities in the city, like there are
Yeah.
places to go if you truly are just struggling with addiction. Like there are
Right.
tons of resources.
Yeah.
There's not a 24-hour crisis shelter for survivors of sex trafficking.
And you all take no insurance. It's all coming from donations.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
And so once we get open, I'm sure that's stuff that we can work through. As of right now, I mean, everything that we do is based on donations. And so I'm sure that piece of it, like if they have insurance, we'll be able to take it. But we're not going to turn away somebody because they don't have insurance.
Well,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, the
Yeah.
insurance company, they're not
No.
going to, we already talked about it. They're not going to give you the length of stay that you
No.
need. They're
And
just not.
so-
Those are the
there
people
needs
that
to be legislation put in place to change that in some way, shape, or form.
good luck with that. The
Yeah.
insurance companies, they're just too powerful. They just have too much money.
She thought she was writing a paper, so you never know.
And so then, I mean, this, as we bought that block of property, you know, Christine, like I said, she was super instrumental in saying, like, this is what we need to do. Mike Daniels saying we need this crisis shelter, buy that block. And now it's like, okay, all right, God, what are you doing? And I mean, I was a believer going into this, obviously going to seminary and everything, but I mean, he has blown me away at how he works, like down to the littlest details. He literally has turned that block of property into like a community project. I mean, we would have firemen and police officers and churches and everybody, our families, everybody was down there, like just doing demo work and getting stuff ready to be able to open. And just the survivors that we have met. I mean, God just be doing stuff.
Exactly. That's my saying, Lemon. God just be doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't even begin to tell you how thankful I am for the survivors that we've met in this fight, because like just the beautiful work that's being done in regards to restoration and redemption and just the amount of hope that they bring and just coming into the center. And so like Michelle's been on staff with us and she was managing the drop-in center. Now she's the community resource specialist.
So tell me what that means.
Managing.
No, community resource specialist.
When ladies come in and they want some resources, like we provide birth certificates. We'll get you a birth certificate, and then we'll get you an ID. And if you need help with that,
Okay, so wait a
mhm,
second.
mhm.
They have no identification.
No, because when you're being trafficked, that's one of the first things
They want to take your ID away.
Yeah.
They want to take your
And even
identification
if you're
away.
self-trafficking, you lose it or it gets stolen.
Right, but
You know,
there's
that's the first thing
more.
a trafficker does is take your identification.
They do that.
No ID.
Well, but what I'm saying is
No,
they're
but,
also.
like, if you don't have an ID, can
And
you
you don't know the
rent
social
an
security number, or
Can you get
now
a job?
You can't even rent a
where you-
hotel room.
Where are you
Yeah.
going? Can you
Without
rent
an
a car?
identification.
You
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah.
Wow. There's more to it than that, though, in my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah.
It's control.
It's control.
Absolutely.
But it's a psychosocial.
I never
thing that
even
they're
thought
doing.
about the ID thing. And, we speak about technology and how it's, evolved this into what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a first step is the real ID on, on a cell phone that you can have tied to your email to where it's these women in first place can't have that taken from them.
Yeah.
because I mean that's just got to be in a helpless situation when you're somebody is mentally and physically abusing you on top of stealing your identity of who you are. I mean that is a tough place to be, and I want to hear more about how you got out of.
Well, wait.
Am I putting the cart before the horse?
Well, yeah, because I want to figure out how the whole thing started. Because you went to Winnetonka High School. You told me that. So you go from Winnetonka High School, which, from a socioeconomic standpoint, how you graduated in 1988.
88. Yeah.
Okay, so in 1988, it wasn't like
track star, basketball stars, in the marching band, student council.
You were
things
active, patched in, and
absolutely.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
this clearly had to start with drugs.
Yes.
Okay, so
actually, it was the fascination of the life. I started escorting because I found out how much money you could make, and that's how I started. And this was before because I'm a little seasoned. This was before the websites and things like that, and you posted ads in papers like the Pitch Weekly. It was the first place I ever posted an ad, and all I did was put my nickname and a phone number. That's all
you
I
didn't
put
have
in
a picture.
there.
They didn't know.
And I had years of friends. Yeah.
Okay, but before you decided to do that, you had to be doing it to buy drugs. I have to think.
That's what prompted me to get to that point, because it was my addiction, and just working a job wasn't enough to pay my bills and feed my addiction.
So you're a basketball star or a track star. So when did you start using drugs? How old were you?
Actually, first time I ever smoked marijuana, I was a kid.
Okay.
Probably middle school.
So you're in middle school? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, just smoking weed. And then I started using drugs. I was introduced to cocaine by a professional football player.
Okay.
Okay. In Seattle, Washington. It was actually Ocean Shores.
How old were you?
21.
Okay. So you're 21 years old.
21.
And
someone offered me a line of coke, and I'm like, I don't know, but I'm like, well, all these people, they've got their stuff together. Surely it's not a problem.
False sense of security.
Yeah.
A lie. Right there.
That's a lie.
I mean,
Yeah.
these guys own condos on the ocean and make millions of dollars. Surely, just doing a line wouldn't be a problem, because I'm smart.
Right.
I'm smart. I'm capable.
Driven clearly.
Addiction, okay, it's fun. There's no problem. There's no way that it could ever become a problem. Fast forward, I'm sitting here today. But
so you initially start doing cocaine and it grabs you, apparently. Yeah. It grabbed you and you were immediately hooked.
Yeah. And it wasn't as I didn't realize I was dependent on it until I couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm. And then how long? So how long had you been using before you realized this?
Couple of years.
So a couple of years, and your route of administration was just snorting, or did you already
snorting?
Okay,
yeah, I was just snorting coke for some years, and that was, like I said, I was in Seattle, Washington then. So I went to my dad was Seattle. My dad did 22 years in the military, and after retiring out of Fort Lewis in Tacoma, he became a Seattle police officer.
So this is the total opposite type of environment that you would think you came from. You would have thought that you came from an environment that you didn't have your father in the house. You didn't have both parents together.
Yeah.
You didn't have any of that. You didn't get to go to high school. And
I told you, this doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate.
So you came from you came from the nuclear family.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You came from the nuclear family, probably went to college, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, how did you get to, what made you go to Seattle, Washington, which is a great town?
My dad, listen, my mom and dad were divorced when I was young, but I've always had my father, always. Even though we have a stepmother and things like that, but my father has always been my father.
Right.
He's always been a part of my life. So when I graduated from college,
the exact opposite of what you think someone who got trafficked would do.
Right. And so I
think you were not close to your father.
Oh, and to this day, I mean, I could call my dad right now. My dad used to call me his favorite, and I said, "You're not supposed to say that." He was like, "Well, everyone knows." Yeah, it's not like they don't know, And absolutely, like, where were we?
So you go to Seattle because your dad was in the military.
My dad, like I said, he was a Seattle. He retired from the military, became a Seattle police officer, and I graduated from high school and went to Park College. That's how old I am. It was college, not university back then.
Yeah.
And so after my first year at Park, he was like, well, do you want to come up and go to school here? Because he and my stepmom were getting a divorce, and my stepmom and I didn't always get along. And so he saw an opportunity. He's like, you want to come up and go to school? I was like, yeah. So I went to Seattle. I went to Seattle Central for a year before I was able to get in-state tuition at University of Washington, the Dub. And that's when I first moved to Seattle and I was 21, I would go out, to the clubs. I'm young, I'm 21. And my dad did a lot of off-duty work at the clubs, at the popular clubs. And so I didn't have to wait in line or pay.
Yeah.
And I am the type of person, I am social. So I don't have to have someone with me. I go to clubs. I would go
by yourself.
Myself.
Yeah.
And in that process, I met some friends. I met good people. They were in college also. And a friend of mine, a lady that I met, that's how I was introduced to a lot of the party scene, and I think back now it's funny. She liked hanging out with me because my dad was a cop.
She wasn't going to get in trouble. You might have.
My dad's a cop. For instance, I'll give you and so we went to Tacoma to a club or something. We were on our way home and we get pulled over. And I'm tired. It's like 2-something in the morning. I'm driving. I used to drive her car, let Michelle drive. Her dad's cop. And we get pulled over and the police officer said, well, have you been drinking? I was like, well, yeah, earlier I didn't lie. I was like, yeah, I had a couple beers earlier. It was like 10, 11 o'clock.
Michelle, I don't want to stop you. Turn that mic towards you because I think you've knocked it a couple of times.
Yeah,
I want to make sure people hear what you're saying.
Yes. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We get pulled over and they asked me, had I been drinking? I said, sure, it was a few hours ahead of that. So they get out and they have me walk the line. They do a sobriety test and do all that. And it's fine. And then one of the cops come over and he had my license. He looked at the cop and he looked at my name. He said, Newton? I was like, is your dad, Ferdinand? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, you put us through all of this. That's all you had to do. I said, well, I hadn't been doing anything wrong. So I'm not going to use my dad's name to get out of something.
You're going to what you do?
Yeah.
You're going to use his name.
And they were like, yeah, we heard about you. Okay, well, this is me. And so I hung out with her a lot. And that's how I got introduced to the people and I introduced to cocaine. Okay. And so I was in Seattle for a while. And then I moved to LA for a minute to help an aunt that was recently going through a divorce and had a special needs son. So I went to help my aunt in California for a while, and we had a falling out. She just didn't understand how I'm a sociable person, and she couldn't grasp the fact that I had friends that would come from anywhere to come visit me or to take me out or things like that. And we just ended up not getting along. My mom's like, you have no family there. You come back to Kansas City. And so then I came back to Kansas City. And one day I was like, man, I want to do a line. And I didn't have any drugs. Mm-hmm. And so then I started, I got in touch with people. And I'm like, hey, it's like, oh, yeah, people that might want that. Lo and behold, there's my addiction. There's my addiction.
And then, so did it progress to intravenous, or did you always?
I've never intravenous.
Okay. So it always around administration.
God blocked me from that one. Thank God.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, so I snort and then and smoke and get crack.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So that's pretty bad too. Because I mean, you see people who I have to wonder if intravenous or smoking it is really, it probably hits you just as quick. I had to think.
Yeah. And I'm glad I don't have that double whammy to be scared, but yeah, absolutely.
So, how long did you use before you transitioned to smoking it?
No. 6 years.
Okay, so then once you smoked it, you had to be just completely done at that point.
Oh, well, I was a camouflager.
Oh, so you were a functioning addict.
I call it, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the most oxymoronic thing.
Right, it is.
But that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I worked at Ford Motor Company, went to work every day, sold drugs, used drugs at the plant. It got to I did not realize how out of control my addiction was until, because I would go to work, I would sell drugs at work, and then I would go to my supervisor, give him some drugs. He'd pay me for 4 hours, and I'd go home. I did that for so long. I could not tell you.
So your supervisor would pay you for an 8-hour day after you worked?
4 hours. if you come in, and I was a utility person, which means you cover the jobs that, like, say if someone wasn't there that day or they wanted to go home or whatever, and it was a utility person.
That's actually not a bad job because you're not doing the same thing over and over.
Perfect for a drug dealer.
Yeah. And you get to meet everyone in the plant.
Yeah. I'd go put their packages in their lunchbox, pick the money up out of the lunchbox, and I'd go home.
Well, here, between working at Ford and dealing drugs, you should have been making plenty of money.
If my habit wasn't atrocious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If my habit wasn't atrocious.
I mean, it had to be horrible.
That's how most people get into selling drugs, is to support their habit.
No, listen, if you've ever listened to any of our podcasts, me and him had our own issues.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and the only time I ever sold drugs was just to get mine for free. I never really sold drugs to make any money. I just sold drugs to get mine for free.
Yeah, every now and then you maybe make a couple dollars, but
You didn't really care.
Yeah, yeah. And so it got to the point where I'll go to work one day, and my supervisor wasn't there. It was a substitute foreman, a different foreman from a different area, and I was like, "Where's he at? I didn't want him to be at work."
Right.
And so he looked in the computer, and so my supervisor had been marking down my tardies, but never reprimanding me for them. So to make it look good, I figured to make it look good, every now and then he'd have to put something in there because people are watching. Oh, she's late.
Right.
You know, I wasn't really late. I was just way over there. But and so I didn't realize that I had helped escalate his habit by giving him drugs. So that day I had to go to it's labor relations, which is like the principal office. You know, it's labor relations, and I had to go down there. And I ended up getting a whole month off work. That's how many things, because I had been reprimanded before. I'd had like a day off, a week off, and then it just escalates to you get more time off. And I never ended up going back, because like a week after that, it was on the news where they had a big drug bust at the plant, and I'm looking at these 9 people on the screen. 6 of them I sold drugs to.
And like, how is my face not on there right now?
Well, and the next
Now
question,
I know
what Mark?
it's
Yeah. Now are they going to tell on me too?
And grace of God,
Yeah.
they did not.
I'm trying to figure out. You had to have people getting high off you for free. I mean,
Absolutely.
I was going to say, because to be selling drugs and working at Ford, people that work at Ford make a lot of money.
Yep.
And then you're also selling drugs and you're busted.
Yeah.
So to
Well,
the
the
point
drug dealer always has a bunch of addict friends.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them a good drug dealer.
well, but not really, Andrew, because I think about the people that we bought drugs for. The guys that we bought drugs for, I can't think of any of them that used.
I don't know what you're talking. I don't know. I did not understand what you just said
The
there.
people that I bought drugs from, I'm not going to mention their names,
Right.
but I've never seen any of them use drugs.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
Because they want you to think that they're not users. They're not going to use in front of you, because then it'll feel like that they have a weakness, and that the person that's buying from them will look at them differently and treat them differently. So they're not going to. Let me tell you, some of the biggest drug dealers that I know, and I've known a lot, I partied with them.
Yeah,
I would be the one that come to their house and just chill out, spend time, and get high with them, and no one else would see them get high.
Yeah, because I could think of 3 people that I bought coke from regularly, and I never seen any of them do cocaine.
Yeah, no,
I never saw any of them do.
Yeah, every now and then you'd have, but it depends. But for the most part, they're just not going to let you see them do that.
So, at what point are you working at Ford, selling cocaine, and still not making enough money to pay your bills that you decide to sell yourself?
Then when I got suspended from work for the 30 days, and like I said, I didn't go back, that's when I placed an ad in the Pitch Weekly, because I knew people.
sorry about that.
So,
And I knew how easy it was.
so it was basically because you got suspended from work that you ended up having to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that point, you decide to take an ad out in the Pitch Weekly, and immediately, boom, you're getting
That's it.
phone calls.
Because a lot of them want drugs, and it's the companionship. You know, it's the companionship. They say, "Oh, I just want you to be here with me." And don't get me wrong, it escalated to, there were some things that I've probably done that I will take to my grave with me.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
I've done a lot for nothing and nothing for a lot.
And at
Yeah.
that point, were you exploiting yourself to take care of your addiction?
Yeah.
Or as you had met
So
somebody?
initially-
I call that self-trafficking
So initially you did it on your own.
initially.
And then so how does it progress to you actually someone making money off of you?
That was my biggest example of never saying never for a many year. I'd say, oh, there's no way I'm giving some dude my money when he smokes more drugs than me and his so-called girl's asking me for cigarettes. What's the point of this? I'm not going to know. But I'm going to share with you one of my biggest examples of never saying never. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and we moved here. My mom's job, my mom worked at Ford Motor Company also. Her job brought us here in 1984, my freshman year in high school. And so I have family, all of my immediate family still in Nashville. And there was at a point, I want to say 2003-ish, I had a lot of truck driver friends. A lot of my friends were truck drivers. And so I had a friend of mine, I was like, hey, where are you going next? I was just, gone. And so he's like, well, he told me where he's going. I said, are you going through Nashville? He said, yes, can I ride with you? So yes, so I ended up back in Nashville. And my grandmother knew something was going on. And she looked at me one day and she was like, you smoke reefer? I was like, well, yeah. Lady, I spoke. She said, you looking mighty wild about the eyes, and that ain't reefer.
She was on to you.
She was on to So I'm hanging out. I'm in Nashville. I'm hanging out in my old neighborhood. Just like in high school, I was known, I was popular, known to be, a good kid, student. So was the same for me in Nashville, even though that part of town my grandmother was in was kind of notorious in South Nashville, and the projects is where my grandmother lived. But when I was coming up, we weren't exposed to certain things because And so I'm back in Nashville, and I go to my old neighborhood. I found some people that I would only see when we'd come to town for the holidays and things, but they were still, I grew up with them. And I was like, hey, do you know where I can get? They were like, what? Michelle smoking crack? They were like, hey, don't ask nobody for it. And so my people looked after me. And then, of course, I'd stray off and do my own thing. And one night, on the weekends, I had friends that on the weekends, I called them weekend warriors, where they would find me on the weekend. I'd buy their crack. We'd smoke drugs all weekend, and I'd send them home. And I'd make money from them. And I was, at this point, I'm kind of smart. If they wanted $50 worth of drugs, I'm going to sell them $20 worth of drugs, and I'm going to keep the $20 for myself,
right?
Or $30. That's part of the game, correct? So one night, there was a young lady that I knew, and I was with my weekend warrior friend. I call him and she was like, well, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I was like, oh, I'm cool. I got people, and I didn't care for her anyway. She was kind of scandalous. I didn't.
Everyone who does drugs is.
But there's some that are, whoa.
No, I get Right. No, I get
And so she was what in the streets they called poison. That's the type of female she was. Well, I'm with my friend, and so he's like, he wanted some more drugs. My people weren't answering. I was like, let me call this girl. So I call her, and because she had told me that she knew there was these two guys that were around that had some pretty good drugs. If I needed some, let her know, and she'd call them for me. I'm like, okay. So I call her, and she called the guys, and she called me. She says, well, they're here. I was like, okay, I'm on my way. So I go over, and I go in the room, and before I get to the room, I see this car that I've never seen before, and I was like, something in my head said, that's not a regular drug dealer's car. It's different. There's a stereotype, So I get in the room, and there's these two guys in there, and the one guy, he says, so what do you want? And I was like, as I say, I never spend as much money as I have. So this is the game part of it. I was like, well, here, I got $20, but could you give me $5 back so I can give me something to eat? And he stood there, and he looked at me, and he said, all right, hold your hand out. He said, why don't you just give me all that? And I was like, okay. So I gave him my money, and he said, hold your hand out. And he puts a little in my hand, puts a little more in my hand. I'll see how this is going, so I keep my hand out. He dumps the whole bag in my hand. And I'm like, I gave him $20. This is about $100-something worth of drugs here. So then I was like, well, can I have the bag back? So I could.
Son, put this in.
good stuff in.
Said, yeah. And so we did that transaction. And I was like, all right, thanks, girl. So I see you later. And I leave. And I'm leaving out, and I'm going down. This is one of the hotels where you have to come in through the outside. And I'm going down the steps, and I hear someone coming. I hear, excuse me, hey, shorty, whatever. was like, yeah. They're like, well, what do you know about pimping and hoeing? I was like,
This is the same person that gave you a shitload of dope for $20.
what do you know about pimping and hoeing? I was like, if it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me to give you my dollars. That's all I know.
Right. Okay.
You know, and I left. And so the one guy, the taller one up to two, he looks at me. Was like, hey, he's like, I'm over here at Hallmark Inn. He told me the room number. He said, when you get some money, call me. And I'd never met any guys like these before. I'd never met so-called pimps like these before. They weren't the average. The pimps that I'd known, like I said, smoked more drugs than the girls, didn't have a place for them to live. They weren't, because as far as I'm concerned, that a pimp's supposed to take care of girls. And so that night, I'm like, I kept thinking about it. So I got some more money, and I called him. He was like, well, why don't you come on over here? And so I go to the hotel. This guy has my favorite pizza, chicken Alfredo pizza with spinach and tomatoes on it. I was like, whoa. And he didn't. It just so happened to be the same type pizza he liked. He's like, you hungry? Yeah. Sit down. And it was a business transaction. He was like, will you be my hoe? And I said, yeah. And he broke it down to me, told me how it was going to go. And he was taking way better care of me than I was taking of myself. This man didn't smoke drugs. He didn't smoke cigarettes. He didn't drink beer. None of it. I'd never seen it before.
He was a businessman.
He was a businessman. That was an enterprise for him. He was third generation pimp. His grandfather was a pimp out of Memphis, Tennessee.
So, oh man. So tell me how he talks you into this. I mean,
He basically,
what was the deal? If you don't mind me asking. So you go out and you make, so do you get to choose who you're going to be with? Yes or no?
Yeah.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, and then do you get to choose how much you're going to charge?
We set that up ahead of time. He broke it down to, he educated me on how to do all of it. He broke it down to me. It was a business.
And
yeah.
And then what percentage of that money did you get to keep?
None.
What? How did he talk you into that?
Because he was taking better care of her than she was of herself.
Yeah.
So what was he giving you?
Well, okay. Let me rewind a little bit and let me give you a little bit of his history. When I met him, like I said, he was at a hotel room. He had just got out of jail the day before. He had just done 9 months for promoting prostitution. He had one of the most notorious escorting rings in Nashville prior to getting it. When I tell you, they prosecuted the editor of the classified ads in the Tennessean for posting his ads. That's how bad they wanted him, and how successful he was at what he was doing. And when I went to his room and I met him, and he told me he'd never had a girl that smoked crack. He said, that's one of my rules. He says, but I leave and I come back, and he says, I hear that's the thing, And so he told me how he really wasn't comfortable with the girl that got high or anything. He was like, but for some reason I like you. And I'm saying to myself, of course you like me. I know how to make money. And so, but he gave me a plan on what he planned on doing. Like I say, he had just got out of jail. He bummed $1. He said he went to the gas station and bummed $1. Went into the gas station, did the change trick. You give someone $1 and they give you change for $100, and went and got a hotel room. One of his friends gave him some drugs, and that was the drugs that he'd given to me. And so he explained to me how the money that's made, what it's being used on. I mean, he had a plan down. I was with him, and ironically, the phone he used to use a prepaid phone for his escort service. That phone was still in his property. When he got out of jail, they gave him his phone. That phone was still ringing.
Today, you think it's still ringing?
No, it was still ringing 9 months after.
Well, that's, I mean, geez.
Yeah. And this is 19 what?
No, it's 2004.
Yeah.
04. Okay.
2004. Right. Yeah.
So now you're probably about 38 years old.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he, the phone, even though in the screen was even cracked on it, and I mean, I think it was Voice Stream or something, but the phone was still ringing. So that helped a lot with me, and because I wasn't very good at, I don't know if you know what a track is, the scroll. the strip, walking the street. I wasn't ever very good at that because they either thought I was the police or I was a man, and I would get put out of cars for not being a man. I know it sounds sick, but
Wait a second.
yes,
Say that again to me.
I would get if someone stopped to pick me up sometimes, and it happened more often than you think, and they find out that I was actually a woman because I'm a big.
You don't look like a man.
I'm big. See these big old hands, and I'm 6 feet tall, and I'd have probably some crazy looking wig on. Yeah, and that the transgenders that you see walking.
So they wanted you to be a dude.
They wanted me to be a man.
Gee,
We see that on Independence Avenue right now.
you know what's crazy? I mean, my grandmother lived right off Olive. My whole family lived on Van Brunt. I don't think I've ever seen a prostitute on Independence Avenue.
Because we call it the invisible. They're invisible.
Have you seen them? Well, you work for the fire department, so
Yeah.
if you're on 23s, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I've never seen one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you go right now, I'll show you one.
And the transgender.
You just know because you know for sure.
they
And so
picked
there's a
up
big
more
market
than-
The
for a
transgender.
male
Yeah.
dressed like a female. There's a market for that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
They
there it
picked
was.
up
I mean,
more
even on some areas, not necessarily Independence Avenue, but some of the other streets, the men make more money than the women.
So let me ask you this now that what percentage of the clientele is a woman looking for a woman?
Not very.
That's rare.
Not
No,
very
is it rare?
It's very
Yeah.
rare.
many. Very many.
All right.
And-
Well, you never know
Yeah,
anymore. You
yeah.
just told
Yeah.
me men are looking for men dressed like women.
Oh
So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was
and see, because being a straight heterosexual man, it doesn't dawn on you because even if you do know someone that's what they call on the down low, they're not going to tell you,
Right.
because they got a wife and kids.
Well, yeah, and they're not going to tell if they're looking for a female either, right? I mean, the
Well,
whole
that
thing's-
too,
Yeah,
but-
right. Yeah, no, right.
Yeah,
No,
nobody knows that they're over on the avenue at any time looking for anybody.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
you were on your way to work, lunchtime. I mean, that's the busiest times.
Yeah.
Well, like in the morning,
It's in the early morning
lunch,
and lunch.
hour, and going home.
And 5 between like.
Yeah, you're going to make me drive up and down Independence Avenue in the morning.
Well, when you come into our center, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna go see
Because they pull up and you'll go walk right over to your car, take a picture of you, your license plate. Like,
Oh, I'm quick.
As a
Even
buyer.
sometimes I can't even get my camera open fast enough, but I'll still do like this, so they'll think I'm taking a picture.
Just make them nervous.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
to make 'em-
Independence. Would you say Independence Avenue is the busiest track in Kansas City for prostitution?
It used to be. Now I've seen it's Prospect.
Prospect is.
Prospect.
Yeah.
Prospect is
So hold on, I'm
really
trying to
bad.
orient myself as Prospect.
Prospect is.
Is-
Believe it or not,
Independence
yeah,
Avenue.
East Patrol.
Oh, what about East
Believe it or
Patrol?
not, East Patrol right there, 27th
You
Prospect
guys are
is
going to
the
make fun of me.
busiest
Is
area.
that Our Lady of Shades?
The shade lady is.
from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's-
I used to be frequent at Our Lady of the Worthless
Yeah.
Miracle. I used to,
No, my
It's not far from there. Not far from there.
my mother listens to all my podcasts. She's going to throw a fit on that.
She's gonna be. I say a couple of things.
The wonderful thing is we've been redeemed, so that's fine.
But there are two
Here, but you
different.
know why I went to this? I can't say it. No, I can't say it on this podcast. No, I can't say. I get some people in trouble. Never.
Go ahead, Jennifer. You.
I was going to say there are two kind of different corridors and areas because the ladies that you see on Prospect, they don't make it over to Independence Avenue. Like that's too far for them to walk or get over there for resources. So, I mean, there's been lots of conversations with KCPD and the major over at East Patrol about, okay, what kind of resources can we deploy in Prospect? Like keep everything going on Independence Avenue, but setting up shop at a separate location just to serve the ladies over there because they don't mix. Like you're not going to find the ladies.
It
from
runs right into
Avenue.
Independence Avenue. They
I
won't
know,
go
but
that
they
far?
don't know. They will not.
Even ladies that frequent the part of Independence Avenue that the drop-in center is located on, they don't even go. Some of them won't go past, say, Benton Boulevard on the same avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and because first of all, especially if they're being trafficked or self-trafficking themselves, if they have regular Johns that they meet, they're not going to be looking for them on
They're already
Prospect.
set. Yeah,
They're going to look
a lot
for them
of
on Independence Avenue.
have the same buyers that come.
Yeah.
So they're going to the same spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So I don't remember. I'm so
we were
floored
still
about.
in Nashville. Saw a guy. You wanted to go somewhere else? Where were we at?
Well, where we were at was how this guy talked you in to giving him your money?
Well, first of all, okay, it's ironic. The day I met him, the next day, the night I met him, and then it might have been like over into the next day. And when I agreed to it, it's that same day that phone rang with one of the regulars, $500 date. Okay, and then he showed me. He was like, and it's funny because it's like, I need you to do me a favor. They're slick. I'm gonna tell you, they're so smooth. And I was like, okay. And he explained to me about the phone and the one that the date that had called. And he ended up being one of my regular. It's $500 for an hour and a half, and I wasn't in there for 25 minutes. It's very, very simple. But then he introduced me when he saw that I wasn't as far as tracks. They call it tracks or the stroll. But as far as seeing that, that wasn't mine, because everyone has their niche. Everyone has their specialty area that is more successful, works better for them, I guess I should say. And mine, and he introduced me to truck stops. Right? I was very successful at truck stops because, first of all, I could conversate with them. It was, and a lot of them, they were just bored and lonely and wanted, someone, or just a
Is
quick
there
date
a
or whatever.
certain outfit you're wearing that they will know that you're quote unquote working?
I always wore. He always had me in short skirts and boots. I had a tan line, and I'm dark. I had a tan line from here to here. I always
From
wore,
below your knee to the mid thigh.
yeah,
Got it.
short skirts and boots.
And then
he bought all my clothes for me. We had been together a while. One time I was like, can I go to the store? He was like, what do you need from the store? I just left the store. He gave me everything I needed. I didn't need to do anything. I mean, when I tell you, I did nothing.
Where did you live?
I was, okay, I'll rewind a little bit. When I was, after that, the day I was with him, that phone rang, I got the $500 date. That next day we went and we got an apartment. It was a pay weekly apartment. Okay. It was already finished.
How many other girls did you have living with you?
Me. It was
Wow.
just me.
Okay.
Okay. And we got an apartment. And then the next week after that, we bought a car. And then he still had a car that was in the pound, that was in the tow lot, rather. I call it the pound.
Okay.
He still had it. And so we were able to get that car out. And then the car that we had bought, that was my car. And I went to truck stops every day like you'd have thought I was punching the clock, paying taxes.
So he's offering you security.
Yep.
He's offering you to pay for all your food.
Yep.
All of your clothing.
Yep.
And basically all of your...
Everything. He ran my bathwater for me.
All of your needs.
Really?
Everything you
He
want.
ran my bathwater for me. He helped me weave in my hair. You know.
So he did baby you.
Oh, absolutely. And he cooked for me. I was with him almost a year before I even cooked a meal. And then that's when by this point, we were close enough. Then he had told me a few times.
So he
before
wasn't violent, because I'm always getting this idea of him violent, and he's
There's different kinds.
There's different kinds. And he, when I met him, and we were with one of his pimp friends, and he was looking for this particular girl. She was a working girl also. And we went to this hotel, and he asked me to go up there and ask for Red. It was her nickname. And I said, okay. And I knew her. I was like, okay, girl, hey, how you doing? I was like, come downstairs. She was like, oh, okay. And his friend beat this girl so bad. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what have I gotten myself into?
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me, now mind you, also too, I'm very green to the politics of pimping and hoeing. I'm very green to it because, like I said, that was...
Talk to me, because I don't know it either.
That's one of my never saying nevers, is that, and so when his friend was polarizing this girl, and I'm sitting up there like, okay, get out of the car now. What world have I got myself into? He turns to me, he was like, don't look, do not look at that. He said, don't look. He says, I'm not gorilla no more. Like, that doesn't make any sense. No more? You mean you used to do that to people and I'm with you? I was like, oh, what? And see, when we sat down initially and talked, because he's sitting on one bed, I'm sitting on the other. Then the night I got with him, and we're talking, and he's explaining some things. And that's one thing I told him. I was like, I says, I've never been in an abusive relationship. I don't know about people I said, and I know pimps put their hands on people. I said, and that's something he's like, I won't. He says, I will not. He's like, if there's ever a time you want to go home, you tell me and I will take you home. I will drive. If there's ever a time that you don't want to do this. Because we were making a business transaction. you know.
Did he abide in that work? Did he?
Yes, for the most part. For the most part, there were times when he did.
You got kind of lucky then.
Yeah, and I didn't realize the significance of our relationship until like towards the end, and I wasn't with him anymore because there was one time a young lady that because I used to go to jail because it goes with it. The first time I went to jail, he bought me like I came home from truck stop from work and the whole bed was filled with clothes, and that's what he would do. I'd come home, he'd have my clothes on the bed. He'd have like my boots at the bottom of the bed, my skirt right here, the shirt above the skirt, you know, how it would look as if you were putting it on, my wig on the pillow. And that's how I would come home to things like that. And he cooked, and he would set the table. We had, well, it wasn't a table, on an apartment. We had like a breakfast nook bar type thing. He had placemats, and we had a very, very
So for all intents and purposes, if you flip the idea of you being trafficked with a standard job, he's actually being a halfway decent partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what you would call a Romeo pimp.
Yeah.
So there's a Romeo pimp and a gorilla pimp.
Yeah.
And he told, while this gentleman
Was
beating the hell out of this woman, he tells you, don't look at it, I don't gorilla anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize,
I was like, oh, crap. You used to do that? But, and then.
So tell me the politics behind this, this operation.
So it was funny when I think back to it. There was times that he was like, oh, shoot, I forgot I didn't teach you that. So he couldn't get upset with me about, following protocol on some things because he forgot to tell me I don't know anything about this stuff, And so like there's times when we would travel and if he was driving and he's in the driver's seat, then I'm directly behind him. And his pimp friend would be next to him and his girl would be over here. But the whole, imagine I'm in the rear driver's seat. The whole time I have to look out the window at the ground. You cannot be even thought about looking at another guy, speaking to another guy. You don't let him hear your voice. When we were in the car traveling, we would text. That's how we communicated because I wasn't even to speak for his friend to hear my voice.
His friend, the other pimp?
Mm-hmm.
He did not want the other pimp hearing your voice.
Absolutely not.
Tell me why not.
Because if he hears my voice and he hears a certain thing in my voice, then he could try to figure out some kind of way to finagle me away from my guy. Because they were all competitive.
So that ain't wasn't a very good friend of his, that clearly.
They don't care.
Okay.
This is about money. This isn't about friendship.
Hey, it's about, and so another part of the politics part that when I think about it this day, I was like, man, there's a lot of people that are green that don't know anything about it at all, except for probably what we're sharing right here. I was anemic, really bad anemic, to the point where I would get fatigued and just fall asleep.
Okay.
And mind you, back then I wasn't drinking. I did smoke my cigarettes and some weed every now and then. My main thing, I smoked crack. We didn't drink because he didn't want you working and drinking because no man wants to smell liquor on a woman that he's paying money to. I smoked my cigarettes, for the most part, but he didn't even like for me to smoke when I was working. He was like, no man that's paying, good money wants to smell some woman smelling like a cigarette. So, because he wasn't your average,
What I'm trying to figure out is why a pimp would beat the hell out of his woman, because you're telling me they don't want to smell booze. They don't want to smell cigarette smoke. They certainly don't want to see you all beat to shit. So why would a pimp beat his girl?
That's control. That's control.
So he's okay. It's more important for him to control you and sideline you for however long he needs to sideline you for.
Yeah. So, and with that being said, about, like you said, like, this is telling you, he's cut from a different cloth. The one time because I was just learning some things about the truck stop and what to do at truck stops, and I couldn't get any dates at the truck stop, and I'd called him, and he said he was on his way, but I went inside the truck stop, and how truck stops have like the little TV rooms and things, and I went in there and I sat down, and I fell asleep, and so I wake up and he's standing there. He's like, "Come on, let's go," and I was like, "Oh crap!" I knew I'd be in trouble. He didn't like to go inside the truck stop. He's a pimp. He doesn't want to be seen inside of a truck stop, and so I'm in the car and we're riding, and next thing I know, bam! I was like, whoa. And he's like, I hated to do that. He was like, don't you ever don't you ever go in that truck stop, sit down somewhere and fall asleep. That's not going to do anything but put heat on you, because they know you're not a truck driver, and you're not driving in a car traveling. He broke it down to me why. And so I was like, oh, he just put his hand on me. And so at that point, still, I have a place to live and I have drugs at my disposal. I have very nice clothes, So, and speaking on what you said about how, like he didn't want anyone smelling like booze or cigarettes. So the one time, and so this, for some reason, I can't remember what instance brought it on, but, cause they're very slick. Okay. So, I had got home, I had taken a bath and everything. He says, lay down on the bed on your face down on the bed and I'll rub you down, because he'd done that before. And so I'm laying down and I see him make a gesture like from under the bed, and he pulls out a tree branch that long and about that thick. And he beat only my behind. Only my behind.
Oh.
Only my behind. Okay? Tricks can't see that. That's not a black eye. Mm-hmm. And so, and it was, I remember I had asked him, why did you do that? He's like, so every time you sit down, you remember what you did, you won't do it again. And whatever it was, I'm sure I didn't do it again. Mm-hmm. And then there was some more instances that I don't go into a lot of detail about it, because it is my trauma.
Sure, right.
Like, it's my trauma boundaries. I got trauma boundaries.
If there's something where you don't want to answer, just say it.
Yeah. But it got to the point where, we were very close. I didn't realize in the significance of my role in his life until one time, I can't remember where I was, but there was this young lady that was one of his friends, girl or whatever, and I guess she'd been to my apartment before, and she was like, you have a nice apartment. I'm like, it's like, when you been to my apartment? And she told me, she was like, you got it made. You don't know, your apartment's nice. So I was like, I'm saying to myself, well, it's what it's supposed to be. It better be nice,
right?
And so she was like, your daddy don't never bring other hoes home or nothing like that, huh? I was like, no, he doesn't.
So that's my next question. How many other girls did he have working for him?
I don't know.
You had no idea? You never got to meet any of them?
Sometimes we call it fly by night. Every now and then we'd meet someone, but they'd stick around for a couple of days or whatever, and then they were gone. We had some that, because he does tell you, if you want me to take you home, I'll take you home. And we've dropped some off wherever that you can go home, because it's not for the faint at heart. I'll tell you that.
So he was dead serious. If they wanted to be done and wanted to go home, he took them home
until he fell in love with me. Until he fell in love.
So you and him had an intimate relationship as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, we lived together, and the girl that told me, she was like, you guys have a nice apartment. And I'm like, and she's like, he doesn't ever bring the girl. I was like, no.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
And so then she was like, well, you've got it made. She was like, I don't even think you understand the significance of sharing his pillow every night. I was like, no, I don't. That's my dude. I mean, what? And so apparently that was a big deal. I didn't realize that at that point there were people that were jealous of me because he wouldn't bring them home. Because there were girls that competed to pay another man to pay him.
So yeah, he after he falls in love with you, is he still allowing you to go and do this for a living?
He would never be involved with a square girl, is what they call it. That's a girl that wasn't a working girl.
I don't see how you could be in love with someone and still, the thought of my wife having sex with someone else physically makes me ill.
His grandfather was a pimp.
It's a business. You think about it.
He won't mess with the girl unless she's a prostitute.
It's $250 billion a year that this generates.
I know several men that will.
I think it's outproduced guns and drugs.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive.
I know several men that will not. That are, I don't know if they're still in the game to this day, but I can remember back in the day, I know several men that would not, that, they would tell you out of their mouth, I love a prostitute, because they make money, and they're loyal. Yeah. The first time I went to jail, he was like, you're certified now. He said, you're officially a hooker. The first time I got a prostitution charge, they said, you're official now.
And because you did snitch on him too, probably.
You know,
So-
and I almost didn't realize it because I didn't know. I'm green. I don't know. And so it was a sting going on. I was in Nashville. There was a sting going on, and there was a guy in a cab. They had a cab driver, and the guy's in the backseat of the cab with a beer. You don't think that's a cop, right? But it was. And so he was like, well, what do you know? I was like, well, I have a friend of mine waiting for me. I got to go. I have a friend of mine waiting to meet at Taco Bell. And I almost messed it up. And they did go and talk to him, but his if you met him, you would have never in a million. You thought he was some a preppy college kid. You'd have never thought he was a pimp. They used to tease and call him tennis shoe pimp. Yeah, because you'd have never thought. You'd have just thought he was some nice, average. He wore glasses and a college kid. And he dressed real preppy. Yeah, you'd have
You're
never.
kidding.
You'd have never in a million years.
Wow.
So one time because he's from Memphis. He was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, but we lived in Nashville. And I remember when he got off probation, he was like, we're going home. You know, we're going to go to Memphis. I got to show you off because everybody knows that everything I have came from you. He's like, everyone knows that. So I guess that's a big deal. And so we went to Memphis, and he took me to his mother's house. Went to meet his mom, and I was in the house. Some of his friends had pulled up, and so he went outside to visit with his friends. And
Was his mother aware of what all of the men in the family have done in the past?
yeah,
And
so
was she victim of the same circumstance?
no, she was not.
So she knows
Yeah.
he's a pimp, and she knows you're his working girl.
So while he was outside talking, she said, sweetheart, I want you to be careful. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she says, no. She was like, I know what my son does for a living. She says, and he's never brought a woman to my house. She says, I haven't ever met my granddaughter's mother. She was like, so please, I want you to be careful. And at the moment, I was like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so that same weekend, we're in Memphis because I love gardening. I love flowers and plants and parks and trees. And so he took me to this real beautiful park, and we're sitting there, we're talking, and I look over and I was like, what is that? What's wrong with that? What's over there by that tree? And there was like a hill, like a little dirt hill. He said, that's the hole that no one will ever find you if you ever think about leaving me. He said, no one will ever find you. At that moment, I was like, okay, I got to get away from this dude.
Mhm.
You know, and at that point, I had acquired strong feelings for him too, because it was just us, you know. And he took very good care of me. He made sure that my children were here in Kansas City with my mother. He made sure my mother get money. We made sure that we went and visited my grandmother.
So you guys were in love with each other.
Yeah. So, and it got to when he had put his hands on me another time, and I said, you promised me you'd take me home. I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't do it. And he was like, he says, I'll take you home. And he gave me this look. Because the look he gave me is like, you get home, but you're not going to get home. How you going to get home?
Mhm.
And so that's when people ask me, well, how'd you get out? I tell them very cleverly. And so I had, there was one particular time, like I said, I was anemic and I would fall asleep, and I had truck driver friends. I fell asleep in one of my friend's truck. I wake up, I had 81 missed calls on my phone.
Oh, shit.
I had slept for 7 hours with no I'm talking, I would talk to him at least 3 or 4 times an hour, let alone, you know. And so I'm scared at this point. I'm scared. I'm not going home. Because at this point I'm scared, thinking that I'm going to be reprimanded, and I don't want you putting your hands on me. So I call him, and he was like, hoes lie. He said, you're lying. And he knew I wasn't lying, but that's his job to make, that's that control stuff up. You're lying. And he was like, I'm coming to get you. I said, I'm not coming home. And he's like, I'm not going to do anything. I said, that's how I know you're lying. Because I didn't even say nothing. All I said was, I'm not coming home. And he's like, I'm not going to do it, Shorty. I'm not going to do anything. So I went and rented a hotel room. I'm still working. And at this point, I'm working the track, which I couldn't stand. But I did all right. And I was staying at this hotel. He knew where I was staying because I'd still gave him all my money. And he would pay for my hotel room. But I wouldn't see him. I'm scared, what kind of life? And I still felt like a fish out of water because I wasn't at home, you know. And so I had, there was a girl there that I'd become friends with because she would help me buy my drugs. And I asked her, we were standing out on the corner, of course, and I had been seeing different cars up and down the strip. It was Murfreesboro Road. I had been seeing different cars. I said, is there an event or something, a concert or something going on in town this weekend? She was like, girl, I don't know. Why? I said, because all these cars with they were cars with different license, different states. I remember Kentucky, New Jersey, Louisiana, Arkansas. These are the ones that I could distinctly see. And the cars, they were hustlers' cars. These weren't just average, regular cars. I was like, it's just something. She was like, no, not that I know of. Well, I did. It was about a week. And I got in one of my friend's cars, and then there was a car that just kept following us everywhere we went. And he was like, look, there's a car following us. I was like, well, lose them. I don't know what they're following you for. And so, I said, just drop me off. So my friend that I was with in the car, he dropped me off at the convenience store that was near where I was staying at the hotel. I go in there and I call him, and I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm ready to come home. I'm tired. I want to come home. I want clothes. I want my bed. I'm ready to come home. And he was, all right, come outside. And it was him.
So that's who was following you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he knows me well enough to know that I'm going to call him because I'm spooked. I'm scared now. Who's following me around?
Right.
And so a friend of his was driving, and that's why I didn't recognize the car. He was in someone else's car. And so I told him I was ready to come home. I go home, and I had a new comforter set. I had everything new. He had been, because I'm still making money. And I think, when I think back to it, I think he spent more money on me than I made. And so, which tells me he probably did have other girls. He just didn't bring them around me.
Right.
And so I get home, and he's like, you did good. He said, you did good. And I was like, did good how? I've been gone a week. How's that doing good? He said, you didn't fall for the pressure. You didn't fall. So it's called being out of pocket. When other pimps hear about someone's main girl being out of pocket or not being at home, they try to get her. So all these cars with these different license plates on them were in town because they heard that his main girl, which is me, had left home.
So there's really an underground network of pimps that communicate across the United
And there is zero loyalty.
No, to an extent, but not for real.
Right.
Because it's a challenge to them. Because he'd even told me one time, I was like, I can't do it. He was like, well, if you want, he said, what is it? Do you want a boyfriend? You want me to find you a boyfriend? He said, I've had hoes with boyfriends before. And I was like, no. I was like, I just want out, And he was like, okay, we'll see how that works out for you. So
at this point, you want to be done. You do not want to sell yourself anymore.
No, I didn't want to work for him anymore because I had a habit. And that's how I supported my habit.
Okay.
Okay.
You said I keep forgetting you're still addicted to crack. Okay.
Yeah. And at that point, he was very, very protective of me. He cared. He told me, he said, I love you. I will kill for you. I'll die for you. He was like, but you're not going to leave me. So, and I had my own car and everything. And so one time I left and I didn't go home. And he was calling me. He was like, well, can I have my car back? I was like, yeah, you can have your car. Can I have my clothes? Yeah. He was like, yeah, you can have your clothes. Come get your clothes. I was like, wrong answer. I'm not coming over there. He's like, well, I have my homeboy meet you. I was like, you taught me too well. I'm not going for any of this stuff that you're telling me. So I parked the car in the neighborhood that I grew up in at the little corner store that I wasn't even permitted to look at as a child. At this point, I'm hanging out, selling and using drugs here, and so I parked the car there, and I told him where I parked the car, and I said, I'll leave the key under the mat. I'll park the car there. It'll be fine. And so he didn't come get the car that day. He came the next day. He said, he was like, I got some of your clothes if you want some of your clothes. I was like, well, are you at the car? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I don't want the phone, the clothes. Can I have my phone? Can I keep my phone? Because I had a lot of money in that phone, And so he was like, yeah. He's like, you know what? I'll do that. You can keep your phone. And so he came to get the car. And where I had him parked car is where everyone hangs out after work. It's where like the homeboys go and drink their beer after work before they go home, or that's where they sell the drugs and things like that. So that's where I parked the car. All these people are there. They've known me since birth. I said, hey, when he came, he was doing this. He stood with his back towards the wall. He was like, you're smart. I said, yeah. I said, well, that's Jeffrey right there. I said, we were in kindergarten together. I was like, and that's my auntie's boyfriend over there. And then, everyone sees him. Can't do nothing to me now.
Yeah.
He said, you're really smart. And that was the last time I saw him. It wasn't the last time I talked to him, but it was the last time I saw him.
Really? So it was that easy to get out then?
I wouldn't say it was easy, but I got out. Yeah. But I got out. He wouldn't
on your terms.
On my terms. Because had I not had him meet me to go pick the car up there, and had I not had all of my friends and people see him, he would have got me. But see, they're very low key. Like I say, they don't want. That's why they take your ID. My wallet stayed in his end table drawer. Okay, and that's why they take your identification. That's why they keep you secluded, because they want you all to themselves, and they don't want anyone discouraging you to not be with them, and to tell you how stupid you are, or anything like that. And so, by all of my loved ones seeing him, they know who you are. They know who he is now.
So, you quit him.
Mm-hmm.
When did you quit using crack?
I stopped using crack in I stopped after that because I went to prison in Florida for 3.5 years. And I got out in 2010.
Prison for prostitution or possession?
Selling drugs.
Selling drugs, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I got out in 2010 and came back to Kansas City. And I was clean for about 2 years. And then I relapsed or returned to use, however you want to say it. And then, so that's how I know how to get money. They go hand in hand, as I said. And then by the time I started back up, that's when the internet, I'd post my ads on Backpage and other things like that. And that's how I got my friends, other than just hustling on the streets. Yep.
So when was it all done? So you do 3.5 years in Florida.
I come home, I relapsed. I was clean and sober for like 2 years after that. Then I relapsed. And then in 2016, I got indicted on a federal case. I got indicted on
trafficking, on drugs?
Yeah, on a $1.2 million oxycodone conspiracy. I went to federal prison.
Again?
In 2016. I've been in prison 3 times.
How long did you do in 2016?
3.5 years.
So then you get out in 2019?
2019, June of 2019. When I got indicted, the feds saved my life. They saved my life when I got indicted. And this is one of the first inclinations that God has things planned for me, in that there was a way that my public defender, who had never met me before a day in her life, my federal lawyer, I could have gotten out on pretrial, which is like a bond on regular cases. I could have gotten on a pretrial, and she was like, no. She was like, I don't want you to go. She said, if I had an apartment in my house, you'd come live with me. She was like, but I don't want you out on pretrial. I was like, what? She was like, I don't want you out. So what? So you can get out and go sell drugs and get high? She said, no. And I said, okay. And sit here. My daddy was like, what do you want to do? Because my dad would have bonded me out. I said, no. I said, I'm good. I'm going to sit here and wait. And I still thought that, I was like, well, my role was small. My role was small at this $1.2 million. They'll let me out. And
everybody's last word.
Yeah. The feds do everything. The feds do things differently. See, the feds, they pull up everything you've ever done wrong in your life, and they go on they have a number system, they call it a criminal history score. The highest you can go in the feds for your criminal history is a 6, and mine was a 5.
Wow.
So when I got sentenced it was December 12th of 2016, December 12th, 2016, my sister wrote a letter to the judge, and I had family members. They had 9 different people there, my family members and my close best friends. They were all there for my sentencing. And so the judge, he held up a piece of paper. He said, Miss Newton, He said, I came to work this morning planning on giving you 120 months. Do the math, that's 10 years. He said, but because of this letter and because of those people out there, I'm going to give you the low end of the guidelines, which is 40 months. So he went from 120 months to 40 months.
Wow.
Because God does stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when I tell people federal prison saved my life. And then I have people that say, "Oh, your clean time doesn't count when you're in prison." Oh, yes, it does.
So, what did they catch you for them to make this case? Did they have a snitch? Did they? Did they catch you?
We were just dumb.
Okay, they had you on the phone.
We left a paper trail.
Okay,
and we were doing fake scripts.
Oh, I know somebody who did that.
Oxycodones. Oxycodones, yeah. And it was one script. I got $3,000 off one script.
Really?
Yeah. We had someone that did the scripts, and we had the funds set up and everything. You call this number, you say so and so pain clinic.
Oh, yours was way bigger than
we had the tape, yeah. And I had a friend of mine that had gotten hooked on opiates and wanted me to do one more script. And the girl that answered the phone on that one more script answered the phone, "Hello," from the Walgreens pharmacy.
Oh shit!
So, and it was what's great that time. I remember walking out the door, and for some reason I turned around and I looked, and I saw that big Walgreens sign. I said, "You big dummy, you're going to the feds. You're just dumb." And true enough, I did, but the feds saved my life. The girl that I was running with at the time, I was with her every day, all day. I'm in CCA, which is federal holding in Leavenworth.
Yeah, I know.
I was in CCA sitting there, and 6 months later, I had been there like 6 months. I looked up, and there's my girlfriend. She walked in. I would have been on her indictment. She's now serving 27 years in the feds.
Oh.
And to be completely honest with you, the time spent behind a fraudulent prescription charge, regardless, it gets to a point to where it's, for the individual, it's not necessarily a enterprise or it's to feed the addiction, because especially with pain medication, it grips you in another way to where it's all you can think about. It's all you can think about. And the other thing I also have a history with pain medication.
Okay.
Very similar kind of things that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it grabs you're just trying to stay well point, and I feel like
You can't even explain it.
Yeah,
I have a unique empathy for opiate addicts.
Yeah,
I do, because I had some friends that were heroin addicts and things. One girlfriend of mine, when she was sick, she just come shake my purse and just grab pills out of my purse. I didn't do them; I sold them. And so, but one time, a girlfriend of mine, because my friend, she used to come tap on my bedroom window. What? Because it's that serious. And so a girlfriend of mine, I used to get the IR30s, the little blue ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so girlfriend of mine, she was like, "Hey," she was like, "I don't know what the hype is." I was like, "Come on, you want to take one?" And she was like, "Yeah." So we split it in half. And I told her, I said, "Oh, I'm good." I said, "This is too nice. I'm good. I don't want to monkey on my back."
Yeah.
Got me bent.
Yeah.
I had enough things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say I have a special empathy for opiate addicts.
Yeah.
So tell me how. So you do your 3.5 years in Florida.
I did 3.5 years. I did 3.5 years in Florida back from 2007 to 2010. And then I got indicted on the oxycodone conspiracy in 2016.
And then you go from 2016 to 2019 in jail again.
And so I get out.
But then this place opens up in 2019.
Oh, I'm 2020. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Okay, so I get home.
I'm just trying to figure out how you go from jail to...
We're almost here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure this out.
So I got out of the feds in 2019. I home planned to my sons. That did not work out. My son discovered the streets while I was in prison. Mind you, my son graduated in Park Hill South, full basketball scholarship, good kid. His girlfriend got pregnant. They moved to Northeast because they needed a cheap apartment. Next thing you know, my son knows about the streets. So it doesn't discriminate. You know what I mean? And so That didn't. My son, like I said, he had a gun. He smoked weed. I'm on federal probation. I love you, son. I gotta go.
Yeah, because you'll go to jail with a
So
gun
it's-
and weed. What's the rule? You get like a year for every bullet, and then what's
5.
5 for every bullet, and how much for the actual firearm?
5. He's 5 for whatever, everything. I know someone that got 35 years. They gave him 5 for the gun, 5 for the clips, and 5 for each bullet that was in the gun. So it depends on, me at this point. I'm almost considered a menace. So if anything happens to me, they're gonna sock it to me. And I wasn't ready to go do a life sentence, and I wasn't ready to die.
Yeah.
So I left my sons, and a friend of mine, she had me call an organization, Sisters in Christ, and I'd never heard of them or anything. And I called the lady. Everyone I'd been calling when I first got out of the feds, they wanted money. I'm like, I don't have money. I just did 3.5 years in prison. I have nothing. What do you mean you need money for me to come and live in your transitional program? Well, I found a transitional. I told her, I said, I don't have any money. I don't have a job. I don't have anything. She said, don't worry about that. I want to help you. So God's still showing me his grace, and he's giving me examples of his goodness. And that's when I ended up. I went to an organization called Sisters in Christ. Okay. And I became a bakery manager. That's a crazy story too. I went to get a job and ended up being a bakery manager, cake decorator for 2.5 years. And all that time I'm working with women. I'm getting my certification to be a peer specialist. I was a med tech. I could monitor meds at the houses. I'm doing all this after federal prison.
2020 it opens?
Yeah, we became a 501c3 in 2019, bought the block of property October 16th of 2020, opened up the drop-in center December 18th of 2020. So at that point, we didn't know her yet.
Okay, so in August, I have a picture of my phone. I think
So
it's
you
August
haven't
3rd
been
of
there since the
2020.
inception of the place.
No.
No.
Well, in August of 2020, we had a walk on the avenue.
Yeah.
And what we did was we got purses and we filled them with hygiene items and we sporadically left them on the avenue for women. And we had signs that said, I'm not for sale. And we walked the avenue leaving purses on the avenue. Jennifer and Jared were there. And only way I know they were there because I went through some old pictures and they were in the background. I don't even remember.
We met her best friend.
Yeah. One of my best friends, Candace, she was working with RPOR. And okay,
who's also a survivor.
She's
that was trafficked on Independence Avenue.
We were sisters in the streets. I mean,
so this block of property that we bought literally is right where all of these ladies were being trafficked.
Yep. Right there.
Like, so you talk about a full-blown redemption story.
Yeah. Going to work in the exact same spot that you used to go to work.
Yes. But a totally different kind of work these
Yeah.
days.
And so,
So
then, okay, I got out of the feds in 2019 and went to work at the grocery store. Then I went to be a full-time house manager for the other transitional living program. And then I had breast cancer. And so while I'm a full-time house manager at this 6-bedroom, 3-story house, climbing these steps all day, I went through 6 rounds of chemo, had a double mastectomy, 25 rounds of radiation. And I'm still at it because I'm passionate about the women, about letting women know that they're not by themselves. You're not alone. Those unique feelings, those feelings that you have, that you think no one else can relate to, you're not.
So do you get threatened by their pimps?
No. They better go sit down somewhere.
Well, but what I'm saying is, you say there's like clearly the Romeo isn't going to bother you, but the gorilla, I would think.
Kansas, I don't know how Kansas City is with gorilla pimps. I was in Tennessee when I had one. Those are the real here. And that here, I do know people that are still in the life, but and
we've never had any issues.
For the sake of it sounding what it is, they respect me too much. They're not gonna do anything.
But even like from the very start, we've never had any issues on that block.
No,
it's crazy. It's like there's like a hedge of protection on that block. Like everything else around it is like a dumpster fire.
Sure,
like, you're in the Northeast.
Yeah, Northeast. And 20 years ago, Northeast wasn't like that.
And it literally is like
they don't do it, and they know I work there. And they know that I help these ladies.
So we have no issues
None.
on the block. That's
not at all. That's God. All the way together. And then too, people that know me, they know that if I'm in it to win it. So they know that I'm serious about what I'm doing.
How many, you probably get a bunch of repeats, clearly.
Oh, we have ladies that come in every day. Same ladies every day.
And they're going to go back out every night.
Yeah. And
they're not ready to get out.
Ever try to talk them out of it, or is that something that you guys don't
I let them know, we build a rapport. You have to build a rapport. You don't, when someone comes in there, you know, you don't say, hey, girl, I can get you out right now. You build a rapport. You let them get comfortable with them and build trust. Okay. And then I will sit them down in my office and I'll say, hey, look, if you want to do something different, I can help you do something different. And then they see me, some of them that I used to sell drugs to and use drugs with, and they say, if you can do it, I can do it.
So wait, you have some women coming in that used to work the streets with you and used to do dope with you.
Absolutely. Lots of them. So you talk about, like I said, once again, redemption, restoration, like God has literally used her full circle to be in there, to be this light of hope, to show these ladies there's something else out there. And they see her and they're like, are you serious? Like, how did you do that? I was out there with you for how long? And look at you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can help you with all the things. Whenever you're ready, like.
Wow. That's powerful.
I don't think anybody understands the story.
It's a game changer.
The game, except for somebody who was.
And, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've been to treatment. If I sat here and tried to tell you how many times I've been to treatment, I would probably have a panic attack and hyperventilate. I don't know.
For drug
treatment. Yeah,
sure.
So I want women to know that it's doable. You know, it's
well, because when you're in the midst of that, you don't think you can ever quit.
Yeah,
It
does. I mean, I remember being in my sick mind sometimes telling myself, well, you know, I'm going to figure out a way to always get high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm going to figure out a way until it just backfires on you, and that people, you know, now, like when you said functional, I think about it. I laugh because it's an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. You know, because we're fooling ourselves. When I come home from the feds, I started a new Facebook page. I still have my old Facebook page, and someone once I said, why do you keep that page? You know why? Because someone's even contacted me on that page that didn't know how to get in touch with me because they want help. And I look at my pictures on my old Facebook page. I thought I was cute. I was cute. But if you looked in my eyes, you saw the sickness.
Oh, yeah, you could see it in the eyes, for sure. Yeah.
And you saw the sickness. I mean, it doesn't matter how cute my hair and my lashes and makeup, all that. I looked sick. And it's funny, I was going through some old pictures, and my uncle, my dad's brother, my uncle, in one of my pictures, he said, you look sick. And I thought I was cute. But I look now, I did look crazy.
Well, and so, I mean, what a story. And then now your job all day long is to basically speak into these women. And sometimes you say you don't. Sometimes you're just there. You're just present.
Yeah. And I'll just listen. And because sometimes I've had girls come in, oh, Miss Michelle, I need to talk to you. I was like, okay, honey, come on. And they'll sit there. And I felt so bad one day. So I think Cynthia, she came in and ranted and she wanted to talk to me, and I'm answering an email or something like that. And she asked me a question. I said, oh, babe, what'd you say? They just want someone there to listen to them. They just want someone that's going to listen. You know, and I listen and I love and I give hugs. And at the same time, guess what? I'll ask them to leave. If you're disrupting our process, you come, but you know, we'll see you later. Bye.
So sometimes they come in, they're out of line, they're still high from the night before.
Or from that 5 minutes.
I can't believe
she'll love on you all day, but she's like, you're not going to out, right? Like, you're going to respect everybody in this space.
I cannot believe that the busy time is 7 to noon.
Or either earlier. We used to call it witching hours. Yeah. Witching hours is right before it gets daylight.
Yeah. On your way to work, lunch hour, and on your way home from work.
So we may as well inform everyone about what you guys offer at Relentless Pursuit. You know, so that they have a place to stay. They could get a shower. They could really stay as long as they want.
Yeah,
yes,
we're
only open from 11 to 4. We're open. I'll run down. You mean you should run down. We're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
That's the drop-in center.
That's the drop-in center. So it's easy to say we're closed Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. Okay, we're open from 11 to 4. The ladies can come in at 11. We have a board. They sign up for what services they need. If they need a shower, they put their name on the board, and we go in order that they came in. You get one outfit a week unless you're exchanging an outfit, because we do, like, if you want to exchange an outfit and get a fresh one, we'll launder it and hang it back on the racks for the next person. They get a shower. We serve a meal from 12 to 3. We serve lunch. The ladies are welcome to come and they get a lunch, and hopefully we have enough to serve them. They can take some with them. We have snacks. I keep bottles of water frozen in the summertime, so when they leave, they can take a bottle of water with them if they need it. There's also on the board, my name's on the board. If they want their birth certificate, identification, social security card, I can get you an application for food stamps. Some ladies have gotten housing vouchers. I know some landlords. I can help them get their apartment. If they already have a voucher, I'm in the process of completing training to be an assessor to be able to help ladies get housing vouchers. Now, in the meantime, while they're getting these housing vouchers, it's like I used to say, okay, we get them a housing voucher, then what? Mm-hmm. You got a lady coming straight out of the tent still using drugs. So what I do is on Thursdays, I offer a life skills classes for the ladies to come in. So because I had a girl tell me, she was like, oh, Miss Michelle, I've been in the tent 3 years. I don't know what I'm going to do with my apartment. I said, well, we'll put your tent in the living room, honey, and you can climb out of it until we get you reacclimated, and so I not only teach boundaries for my life skills, I stress boundaries just throughout the day to ladies.
So the drop-in center is open 4 days a week.
Yes.
From 11 to 4.
Yes.
And in addition to that, so she's doing that in-house, but then we have a ton of community partners. So like Care Beyond the Boulevard, we have a free medical clinic where they'll do rapid testing, give out meds, all kinds of stuff for free. We partner with the Mattie Rhodes Center. They're going to be moving into 5110 in our block of property to do drug and alcohol counseling out of their vocational alliance, because I'm a big believer in just holistic rehabilitation. I mean, we can't help these ladies get out of the life and then not help them get educated, get a skill set to be able to generate their own income.
Well, yeah, because then they'll just go back into
exactly.
life. Yeah.
And so Mattie Rhodes is their point of entry for a mentorship program, vocational alliance, where then they can go and pursue a bunch of different career paths. They're doing youth development programming out of there. So there's that. We partner with the KC Free Eye Clinic for eyeglasses. We also work with the Joseph Project. So if you guys happen to know any lawyers that are wanting to help pro bono expunge felonies for survivors, the Joseph Project is doing some phenomenal work nationally. And so we work with them. So you have ladies that will end up racking up tons of felonies because of all the prostitution charges. So this particular group is helping to expunge felonies. And then we're also working with Legal Aid of Western Missouri for their warrant referral program. So these ladies that have tons of warrants that are afraid to go get them taken care of because they think they're going to get taken to jail, we will help them get that all set up and get warrants taken care of pro bono. So, I mean, literally anything they walk in there with. Flourish Furnishings, when Michelle helps them get an apartment, we partner with them. We pay, I think it's $100.
It's $75 and
$75 in a U-Haul rental, and they get to shop and pick out all of their own furniture for free. Like with that $75 that we pay, it's a nonprofit locally here that they take secondhand furniture, gently used, beautiful stuff. And the lady actually gets a shopper and gets to go pick her own things. So it's empowering her to be like, oh, wow, I picked all my own furniture and this is great. So she doesn't end up in an apartment with nothing.
Yeah.
And forced to go back out there to do something to get money to get furniture.
And we try to provide as much as, like, if a girl gets her apartment, we put the word out, and we have a certain volunteers that will come with a care basket with all of their little staples for their apartment to get them started. I'm talking toilet paper, paper towels, comic cleanser, the spatulas, and just all staples to get you started. And then we have, I also have the Goodwill. The Goodwill comes and teaches. They bring their a mobile computer lab, and they teach the ladies basic computer skills. They come by every Wednesday at 1:30, and the ladies are they teach them how to email. They get them their email, and you just make me think of something when we first started that I think now I'm gonna have ladies set up an email and find a way to download their identifications and things like that on there so that they can just pull it up.
And so the subset of this, I want to get into this real quick before we end, is the what did you call it in the questionnaire? The 90-day deal.
Yes. So that is under construction currently. So we are raising money.
And so you still need money for that.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are currently in the middle of a capital campaign.
How much you guys need?
Probably about $2.5 million to finish that.
It's a lot.
But a lot of that will hopefully be donated.
Yeah,
We're
for
working
sure. Yeah.
with construction companies locally. So I'm hoping that that's not really the number that it's going to cost.
Some of it could be donated.
Yes, but we just finished up our final audit. So that will be good in regards to grant writing.
Yes.
And then
And this will be a 90-day rehab facility.
24-hour, 90-day, 24-hour emergency crisis shelter for law enforcement, first and foremost. So that helps them when they pick up ladies or first responders. If he's out on a call and picks up a lady at 2 o'clock in the morning and she's been trafficked and he has nowhere to take her, he can call us and say, hey, you have a bed open.
Just for traffic or for drug? For
Just survivors of trafficking.
Situation. Yeah.
There's nowhere in the state of Missouri to take these ladies at 2 o'clock in the morning. There are long-term programs, but their intake is usually Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
And they can stay for up to 90 days.
In our facility,
your
once
facility,
it's finished. Once
for up
it
to
gets
90
finished,
days.
yes.
You know, that's,
And that will do the assessment of, was that 90 days all they needed? Or do they now need to go to Rehope or somewhere else for a longer term program?
Well, this is awesome. And I tell you what, so we created Nina's Wings, and my wife wanted to create the 501c3. I named it. I'm just going to go ahead and pat myself on the back real quick. But we really, we told everyone too when we had this fundraiser last year, because we have 2 separate 501c3s. One's for helping kids that, right now we're helping a little girl that's got Batten's disease. It's a fatal diagnosis, but there is medicine for it. It's $25,000 a month. And so that help is helping that family right now. But with Nina's Wings, we told everyone that donated, guys, we don't know what this looks like. Yeah. This was on our heart. This was something we wanted to do, but we just don't know what it looks like. And people still donated to it.
Yeah.
So we really need to get me, you, and my wife together. And honestly, this was Michelle's idea. This is, because she was in church and she's like, you need to call that girl. And I'm like, I don't remember her name. So I called Jonathan and then Jonathan got me your name. And so, this is something we need to definitely sit down and talk and potentially.
Because it all comes together. And
we need to potentially partner up for sure.
I always say we're not just fighting trafficking. We're fighting poverty. We're fighting mental illness. We're fighting addiction.
That's all.
Because it all comes together.
Yeah, nobody in their right mind thinks that this is a good idea to go, hey, I'm going to go sell myself today. Nobody thinks
not
that.
at all. No.
So, here, guys.
Thank you, guys.
This was awesome.
This was great.
I mean,
Thank you.
we could sit here for.
I know it's like it's time to go already.
Yes, I know. It's been 2 hours.
Oh, really?
It's been 2 hours, and I was supposed to be at my next one at 6 o'clock. So it's all right. Don't even worry about it. It's not a big deal. But I can't thank you guys enough. What you guys are doing is awesome. It probably sometimes feels like you're fighting a losing battle. It takes a special person to be able to do this. And I thank you guys very much. And if anyone needs information, it's, gosh darn it, it is
RPOR.org.
Relentless Pursuit
Outreach and Recovery.
Relentless Pursuit Outreach and Recovery, RPOR.org. Michelle, you know what? You should be proud of where you're at.
I am.
You should be proud of where you're at.
God's smiling on me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Clearly what you did and who you are is 2 totally different things.
Absolutely.
And, you know what? It's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll definitely get Michelle in front of you guys so we can potentially partner up. This will be good.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.